Virtue that looks with favor upon things that are honorable ought likewise to look without anger upon things shameful. Do you mean to say that virtue should be both base and great? But that is what is being said by one who would have it exalted and abased, inasmuch as joy at right action is glorious and splendid, while anger at another's transgression is sordid and narrow-minded. Nor will virtue ever allow itself to imitate vice in the act of suppressing it. Anger itself it holds to deserve chastisement, being not one bit better, and often still worse, than the misdeeds which arouse it. Rejoicing and joy are the natural property of virtue. To be angry accords no more with the dignity of virtue than does grief. Sorrow is the companion of irascibility. All anger reverts to it, either remorseful or rebuffed. Again, if the wise man's nature is to be angry at transgressions, he will be angrier the greater they are, and he will be angry often. It follows that the wise man will not only lose his temper on occasion, he will be habitually bad-tempered. But if we believe that there is no room in his mind for great or frequent anger, why should we not make him free of this affection altogether? For there can be no limit to his anger, if it is to tally with each man's action. Either he will be unfair if he is equally angry at unequal misdeeds, or he will be very irascible indeed if he flares up as often as crimes are committed that merit his anger. It would be scandalous did anything be more so, for the wise man's state of mind to depend on the wickedness of others. Is Socrates to lose his power to come home with the same expression on his face as when he left it? Yet, if the wise man has a duty to be angry at shameful deeds, to be provoked and depressed by crime, nothing will be more troubled than the wise man. His entire life will be spent in a bad temper and grief. At every moment, he will see something to disapprove of. Every time that he leaves his house, he will have to step through criminals, grasping, spendthrift, shameless, and prospering as a result. Everywhere that his eyes turn, they will find some ground for indignation. His powers will fail him if he forces himself to anger as often as anger is due. All those thousands rushing to the forum at daybreak, how vile their lawsuits are, how much viler their advocates. One brings an action against the verdicts of his father. He would have done better not to deserve them. Another proceeds against his mother. A third arrives to denounce a crime of which he is the more obvious culprit. A judge is selected to condemn what he himself has committed, and the gallery, corrupted by good pleading, sides with the bad. Why go into details when you see the forum crammed, the enclosures thronged with an entire population, and you see the circus with the mass of the people on show? You can be sure of this, that there are as many vices here as men. You will see people here out of military dress, but still at war with each other. One man is brought for a paltry gain to ruin someone else. No one makes a profit except by wronging another. They hate the prosperous. They despise the unfortunate. They feel oppressed by their betters and are themselves oppressive. to their inferiors. Goaded by diverse appetites, they would sacrifice everything for some trivial pleasure or plunder. Life is the same here as in a school of gladiators. Living together means fighting together. A gathering of wild animals is what you have here, were it not that animals are calm among themselves and refrain from biting their own kind, while these people glut themselves with tearing one another apart. Nor is this their only difference from dumb beasts. Animals grow tame to those who nurture them. Human frenzy feeds on those who feed it. The wise man will never cease to be angry if once he starts. All is a crime and vice, and more crimes are committed than can be cured by summary punishment. A positive contest in wickedness is being fought out on a huge scale. Every day sees an increase of the appetite to do wrong, a lessening of shame. Regard for what might be better or fairer is banished. Lust forces itself in wherever it sees fit, nor are crimes any longer concealed. They parade in front of you. Wickedness has come out, gathering strength in every heart to the point where innocence is not merely uncommon but unheard of. It is not mere individuals or small groups who break the law. You may be sure of that. From all quarters, as though at a signal, there is a rush to confuse the boundaries of right and wrong. The guest by him who harbors him is slain. The guest by him who harbors him is slain. Kindness twixt brothers too is sought in vain. The son-in-law pursues the father's life. The wife her husband murders. He, the wife, the stepdame, poison for the son prepares. The son inquires into his father's years. Ovid. And what a tiny fraction of the crimes this is. There is no description here of opposing armies drawn from one side, but fathers and sons swearing different allegiance, of the fatherland put to the flame by the hand of the citizen, of hostile cavalry spreading out in squadrons to hunt down the hiding places of the proscribed, of wells poisoned and plague artificially manufactured, of trenches dug in front of besieged parents, of poisons full and whole cities ablaze, of murderous tyrannies, of secret plans for monarchies and the ruin of the state, of glory taken in what, so long as it can be suppressed, counts as crime, rape and sexual delinquency, with even the mouth brought into play. Add to all this international perjuries and broken treaties, looting by the stronger of anything that offers no resistance, frauds, thefts, swindles, repudiations of debt. Three forms would not be enough to deal with them. If you wish the wise man to be as angry with crimes as their heinousness requires, he must lose not his temper but his sanity. You will do better to hold instead that no one should be angry at error. Surely no one will be angry with people who stumble in the dark or whose deafness stops them from hearing an order, or with children who fail to see what they should be doing and turn their attention to games and the silly jokes of those of their own age, or with the sick, the old, the weary. This too is one of the misfortunes of our mortal condition: darkness of mind, the inevitability of error, and still more, the love of error. To avoid anger with individuals, you must forgive the whole group. You must pardon the human race. If you are angry with young and old for their wrongdoing, be angry with infants too. They are going to do wrong. No one is angry with children. No one is angry with children who are too young to know the difference. But being human is more of an excuse, and a juster excuse, than being a child, for this was what we were born to be: animals prone to ailments of the mind no less than of the body, not exactly stupid or slow, but given to misusing our shrewdness, each an example of vice to the other. Anyone who has followed his predecessors down the wrong path has surely the excuse of having gone astray on a public highway. A general applies severity to individuals. When the whole army has deserted, he can only show clemency. What rids the wise man of anger? The sheer multitude of wrongdoers. He knows that it is unfair and unsafe to be angry at failings shared by all. Heraclitus wept whenever he went out and saw so many lives wretchedly lived, or rather wretchedly lost, around him. He pitied all those whom he met that were happy and prosperous. That was kind of him, but rather too weak. He himself was among those to be lamented. By contrast, they say Democritus was never seen in public without a smile on his face. So utterly unserious did anything that was taken seriously seem to him. What room is there here for anger, if everything calls either for laughter or tears? The wise man will not be angry with wrongdoers. Why? He knows that no one is born wise, but at best can become so, that the wise are the fewest in any age, for he has surveyed the human condition. No one in his right mind is angry with nature. One might as well be amazed that there are no apples hanging on woodland briars, that thorns and thickets are not full of fruit. No one is angry at faults, for nature is the defense. So the wise man will be calm and fair to the errors which confront him. A reformer of wrongdoers, not their enemy. He will start each day with the thought: many will meet me who are given to drunkenness, lust, ingratitude, avarice, many who are disturbed by raving ambition. All this he will view with the kindly gaze of a doctor viewing the sick. Surely a man whose ship has timbers loose and is leaking badly will not be angry with the sailors or with the ship itself. No, he will hurry to deal with it, shutting out water, scooping it up, blocking up the obvious gaps, working ceaselessly against hidden, invisible leaks without ever pausing, since anything drawn off trickles in again. Prolonged help is needed against evils that are ceaseless and fertile, not to stop them, but to stop them winning. But anger is useful, someone may say. It enables you to escape contempt and it frightens the wicked. In the first place, if anger is as strong as its threat, the very fact that it is frightening makes it hated as well. But it is more dangerous to be feared than despised. If, however, it lacks the power, it finds itself more exposed to contempt and cannot escape derision. Nothing falls flatter than an empty show of temper. In the second place, it is not true that the more frightening, the better. I would not wish it said to the wise man, the wild animal's weapon is also the wise man's to be feared. After all, fever, gout, malignant sores are feared, but that does not mean that there is anything good in them. On the contrary, they are all of them abject, foul, low conditions. That is just why they are feared. In the same way, anger in itself is hideous and not at all to be dreaded, but it strikes fear in most people in the way that a hideous mask strikes fear in children. And what of the fact that fear always recoils on those who inspire it? No one can be dreaded without dreading something himself. Here you may recall that verse of Lucius, spoken on stage at the height of the Civil War. It attracted the entire people as an expression of public feeling. He needs must many fear whom many fear. Nature has decreed that whatever is great through another's dread shall not be without its own. How the lion's heart shudders at the slightest of sounds. The fiercest animal starts up at a shadow, a sound, a scent that is unfamiliar. Whatever strikes terror must also tremble. There is no reason, therefore, why the wise man should desire to be feared or think that anger is something great because it scares. The most contemptible things, poisons, infectious bones, bites, are also feared. No wonder that huge herds of wild beasts are held in and driven into traps by a line hung with feathers, called the scare, after the feeling which it inspires in them. Silly creatures are terrified of silly things. The movement of a chariot and the look of its turning wheels drive the lion back into his cage. The movement of a chariot and the look of its turning wheels drive the lion back into its cage. The squeal of a pig strikes terror into an elephant. So anger is a source of fear, in just the same way as a shadow is to children, or a red feather to animals. In itself, there is nothing firm or strong about it. It simply impresses little minds. You must first rid the world of wickedness if you would be rid of anger, but neither can be done. In the first place, it is possible not to feel cold even in winter, and not to feel heat even in the hot months. One can find a favorable spot for protection against the inclemency of the season, or sheer physical endurance can master the feeling of heat or cold. Then again, consider the reverse of this. You must rid the mind of virtue before you take on bad temper, since virtue and vice cannot coexist. A good man simultaneously in a bad temper is no more possible than a healthy invalid. It is impossible for the mind to be rid completely of anger. Human nature will not endure it. But nothing is so hard or uphill that it cannot be overcome by the human mind and reduced by constant application to easy familiarity. No affections are so fierce and self-willed that they cannot be tamed by training. Anything that the mind commands itself, it can do. Some people have managed never to smile. Some have kept off wine, others off sex, some off liquid of any kind. Another, making do with little sleep, stretches out his waking hours without any sign of tiredness. People have learned to run along thin, sloping rocks, to carry huge, almost superhuman loads, to plunge to a vast depth and endure the water without any pause for breath. There are 1,000 other cases where dogged determination has overcome every obstacle and shown that nothing is difficult if the mind itself has resolved to endure it. In the examples which I have just given, the reward for such determination was nil or trifling. Training oneself to walk on a tightrope or to put a huge load on one's shoulders, to keep one's eyes from closing in sleep, or to reach the bottom of the sea is hardly a splendid achievement. Yet the task, however slight the remuneration for it, came to completion through sheer effort. Are we, then, not to summon up endurance, seeing what a prize awaits us, the unshaken calm of a happy mind? Think what it means to escape the greatest of evils, anger, and with it, frenzy, savagery, cruelty, fury, and the other affectations that accompany it. It is not for us to find a defense, to excuse our indulgence with the claim that anger is useful or unavoidable. Was any vice, I ask you, ever without its advocate? You cannot claim that it cannot be cut out. The ills which ail us are curable. We were born to be upright, and nature itself, should we wish to be improved, will help us. Nor is it true, as some have supposed, that the road to the virtues is uphill and rough. Hesiod. No, you approach them on the level. I have not come to you in support of an idle cause. The way to blessedness is easy. Just embark on it with good auspices and the good offices of the gods themselves. Doing what you do is much more difficult. Nothing is more leisurely than calmness of mind. Nothing more toilsome than anger. Nothing is more relaxed than mercy. Nothing more occupied than cruelty. Chastity comes with time to spare. Luxury has never a moment. Every virtue, in short, is easy to guard, whereas vice costs a lot to cultivate. Anger must go. That is agreed in every part, even by those who say it should just be reduced. It should be dismissed altogether. It will never do any good. Without it, easier and more direct ways can be found to be rid of crime, to punish and transform the wicked. Everything that the wise man has to do, he will accomplish without the help of anything evil, without mixing in anything which he must anxiously seek to moderate. So anger can never be permitted, though it may sometimes be stimulated if the sluggish minds of the audience are to be aroused in the same way that we use spurs and brands on horses. that are slow to bestir themselves. Sometimes it is necessary to strike fear into those on whom reason has no effect. But of course, that does not make being angry any more useful than sorrowing or feeling fear. But are there not situations which might arouse anger? That is that is when it should most be resisted, nor is it difficult to subdue the mind. If even athletes, engaged as they are in the most trivial area of human activity, nonetheless put up with blows and pain to exhaust the strength of the assailant, striking back not when anger, but when the occasion prompts them. They say that Pyrrhus, the greatest instructor in gymnastic contests, would advise those whom he was training to avoid anger, since it interferes with art and only looks for a chance to do harm. Thus, it often happens that reason calls for endurance, anger for vengeance, and that, having been able to cope with our first misfortunes, we fall into greater ones. Failure to bear with equanimity a single insulting word has led to exile. Unwillingness to bear a trivial injury in silence has resulted in overwhelming misfortune. Indignation at the slightest infringement of liberty has brought on the yoke of servitude.